Hello students, this is Uttay Basu, Assistant Professor from Bengal University, West Bengal. So today we will discuss on the dumping procedure in international trade. Now, before starting the dumping, so dumping is a term which is used in the context of international trade particularly. It is a situation when the country or maybe a company or organization exports a product at a price which is lower in the foreign importing market than the price in the exporter's domestic market. So we can say the dumping typically involves the substantial export volumes of a product. It often endangers the financial viability of the product's manufacturers or the producers in the importing nation. So by definition, we can say it is a situation of international price discrimination where the price of a product when sold to the importing country is less than the price of the same product when sold in the market of the exporting country. So in a legal sense, it means export of a goods by a country to another country by in a lower price than its normal value. So it is a situation where actually some organization or a country is actually getting advantage of the situation, means the advantage of a situation where he can sell the product in some other country in a lower price, which may cause the exporting countries adverse situation, maybe some abolishment of some technology, or maybe some war situation, or maybe some drought, some flood, or some natural disaster. So there are a lot of effects of dumping, and there are a lot of causes of dumping. Now, there are actually three forms of dumping: the persistent, the predatory, and the sporadic. Now, starting with the persistent dumping. When a monopolist, we know what is monopoly is, when a monopolist continuously sells a portion of his commodity, maybe goods or service, at a higher price in the domestic market, means his own market, and the remaining output at a lower price in the foreign market. So it means he is earning more from the foreign market. Maybe he is earning the foreign exchanges, and this thing is called the persistent dumping. Now the predatory thing. So it is a temporary sale of commodity at a below cost or a lower price abroad in order to drive foreign producers out of the business. So this was the situation I was talking about. So if the country A can sell the product in country B in the lower price of B's domestic market, then what will happen? The local producers or the local manufacturers will go out from the market because of the pure competition. So which causes that after which the prices are raised abroad to take advantage of the newly acquired monopoly power. So country A now can enjoy the monopoly power in country B, where he can easily sell the product in whatever price he wants. Now, the sporadic dumping is a situation where the producer sells the unsold stock of his business at a lower price in the foreign market without reducing the domestic price. So, in this case, the producer is not hampering his domestic market. So, whatever his situation is in the domestic market in his own country, he is not hampering that. He is not affecting that, but he's actually selling those unsold products which he cannot sell in his own market in the foreign market, means in some other country in some lower price. So there may be so it's not like that only the three kinds of dumping. Then maybe a predatory comes sporadic dumping, then maybe some persistent comes sporadic dumping. So sporadic dumping is a situation, is a kind of dumping which can be which act together along with the persistent or the predatory. Now, the why there is dumping, the objectives. The very first thing is that to find a place in the foreign market. So the due to perfect competition in the foreign market, the lowers the price of this commodity in comparison to the competitors, so that the demand for the commodity may increase. So if you put down your price in the foreign markets, obviously the consumer will get attracted and they will buy more product um, so it will be higher demand, so you can acquire new market in different other countries. So maybe this thing is actually is it done by the some Western countries, some European countries, in some third world countries, or maybe in some Asian countries also. Then to sell surplus commodity. When there is excessive production of a monopolist commodity and is not able to sell in the domestic market, he wants to sell the surplus at a very low price in the foreign market, but it happens occasionally. So this was the thing which happened in India in the 80s and 90s in the jute market. And even in the 70s also, there were a hell lot of production in the jute in all over the states, particularly in the West Bengal, some Jharkhand and the other states. And after fulfilling the demand of the domestic country, the jute product has a huge demand in the foreign markets. So we were selling those jute product in the foreign market. But after that, what happened? Those plastic things came, and those plastic bags came along with some environmental issues. So now the jute market is once again is getting a high because of those environmental issues regarding to the plastic bags and those micron issues. So once again, the India is trying to sell the surplus jute commodity in the foreign market. Then number three is obviously the expansion of the industry. The cost of production of its commodity is reduced, and by selling more quantity of his commodity at a lower price in the foreign and domestic market, he earns larger profits. So that's a normal business. And obviously, the last one is the new trade relation, where the producer will sell this commodity at a lower price in the foreign market, thereby establishing the new market relations with these countries. So there is not only some abnormal profit, but also some also enjoying some new markets, some issue regarding some surplus commodity, and the expansion of the industry. There are a lot of issues, a lot of objectives of the dumping. Now we will discuss about some effects of the dumping. Now, there are very few positive effects. There are cheap rate of goods and services available in the country. It helps to change the people's taste, which is beneficial for standard of living, and it creates a competition in the market. So these are the very normal effects. So if a foreign country, if a foreign country is selling his product in our country with some cheap uh, price, so obviously there will be a competition. So obviously the domestic countries will try to reduce the cost of production, and there will be a healthy competition in the market. But in most of the times, what is happening is which is affecting badly the domestic producers. So in most of the cases, the foreign companies are selling their products in our market in such a cheaper price, which cannot be afforded by the domestic countries, because if they get the cost of production is so low, that will not be possible for them to get the product produced. Now we will tell about the negative effect of the importing country. So the main problem is the negative effect. The first is the less sale of country quantity of goods, but the domestic industry is not able to bear competition. And after a competitor ends and he sells the same commodity at a high monopoly price, then there will be reduced profits. They will decline the productivity. That is the main factor, and the reduced return on investments. So all these things will have an adverse effect on cash flow, the inventories, the employment, the wages, the growth, the investments, the ability to raise capital, etc. So we can see the a single if a single company is doing dumping, so all the other negative factors are very much chain related. So that will affect the wages, that will affect the employment, that will affect the economy, that will affect the price system, that will affect the inflation, that will affect the inventories, employment everywhere. So and obviously that will affect the GDP too, because the less sale of the less sale of the country quantity goods will affect the GDP, the affect the market demand. So so because of this negative effect of dumping, the government in all the countries are trying to actually stop the dumping procedures. But the problem is that in most of the poor countries, like the developing countries and the developed countries, the Asian countries are hampering the most. The countries like India, the Africa, the Pakistan, the Bangladesh. In all these countries, the European countries are getting the upper hand. particularly the countries like China and America. They are doing they are doing those things in those electronic products, where they are getting those things produced in their country in a very lower price, in a very cheaper price. Then they are selling these products in our countries with a very cheap price. And so we can say the example of the China Mobile, that we have the market in India, like the Samsung, the Vivo, the Apple, the LG, but a particular mobile with some standard specifications, we can spend up to rupees 10 to 12,000 or maybe 15,000. But with the same specification, the China Mobile price is around 5 to 6,000 or maybe less than that. So people who are having a very low income group, so they are actually going for the China mobiles, which are maybe the less durable than these branded products. But still, by this strategy, they are actually getting some kind of market share from our country, which is actually good for their country, which is actually, if we think that in a positive way, that this thing is actually raising the competition. But that is not actually happening, because the Samsung, the Apple, the LG, and those all those Vivo and Oppo, so they are actually not competing with the China Mobile, because their target customers are those people which have a lower income group. But what is happening actually, this reduce the profits of the other companies, because of the less market share, and obviously the reduced return of investment, and it ends the sales of the same commodity at a high monopoly price. So these are the negative effects of the dumping in an importing country. Now, what is happening in the exporting country? So there are two negative effects and two positive effects. The exporting country earns foreign currency, obviously. They will earn the foreign currency, and it's helped to improve the trade balance. The balance of trade will be get improved or get balanced. The negative effect means it's increased the demand of the raw material in the exporting country. So there will be more production, there will be more employment, and it reduces the domestic market. So for the exporting country, this is, you can say, this more or less positive in nature. But if it from the importing country, it's hampering actually. Now there are some anti-dumping measures which is taken by all the countries around the world in the case of international trade. First, the tariff duty. To stop dumping, the importing country imposes some tariff on the dumped commodities. Consequently, the price of the importing commodity increase and the fear of dumping ends. So the price will increase and the dumping procedure will get end easily. But it is necessary that the rate of duty on import should be equal to the difference between the domestic price of the commodity and the price of the dumped commodity. But otherwise, it will be meaningless. So if the rate of duty is not equal or maybe less or greater than the domestic price, so automatically there will be some advantage taken by some other countries. Then there is import quota. The import quota is another measure to stop dumping, under which a commodity of a specific volume or value is allowed to be imported into a country. So there are some products which is not allowed by Indian government to import or even export. For this purpose, it includes the imposition of a duty along with fixing quota and providing a limited amount of foreign exchange to the importers. So we can say the very recent example of the hydroxychloroquine medicine in case of corona, which India sent to the America due to their severe medical condition. But that hydroxychloroquine is not allowed to sold to any other country. And all the countries who are actually following the WHO guidelines are not actually trading on those hydroxychloroquines. So that we can say it's an import quota. And there are some import embargo. The import embargo is an important regulatory measure against dumping. So according to this, the imports of certain or all types of goods from the dumping country are banned. So that actually happened in case the India Pakistan, and sometimes that was happened regarding those trade wars between the America China, and sometimes it was happened between the Russia and America also, those import embargo. And the last one is VER, means the voluntary export restraint. To restrict dumping, the developed countries enter into bilateral agreements with other countries from which they fear dumping of commodities. These agreements ban the export of the specified commodities so that the exporting country may not dump its commodities in other country. Such bilateral VAR agreements exist between India and EU countries in exporting the Indian textiles. So it was happened in India with the other EU countries, European countries, that to stop the dumping of those European Indian textile products, they did this VER agreement with us. So dumping is nothing but an indirect, or you can say it's a direct price determination, or price discrimination. So how the price has been determined under the dumping? On the dumping, the price is determined just like the discriminating monopoly. The only difference between the two is that under discriminating monopoly, both markets are domestic, while under dumping, one is in a domestic market and another obviously is a foreign market. So in dumping, a monopoly sells its commodity at a higher price in the domestic market and at a lower price in the foreign market. So it's a situation where a price is being discriminated between the two countries. One has a domestic country, another has a foreign country. And the conditions, the main aim of the monopolist is to maximize its profit. Obviously, the profit maximization is the main motto. Therefore, produces that output at which the marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Since he sells his commodity in the domestic market and the foreign market separately, he adjusts the quantity such wise in each market that the marginal revenue in both markets of equal. So here comes the situation of the normal economy, where the MI equal to MC. So actually he is getting more profit from the foreign market. So obviously he will sell less product in the domestic market. So that is why in this situation, in the dumping situation, actually the domestic market hampers. If a person gets higher foreign revenue from, or foreign exchange from European market or from other country, so obviously he will sell those products, maybe some unsold products, and not only the unsold products, he will forcefully sold his own products in the market, hampering the domestic demand. So that is why to stop this, there was some import embargo and some other anti-dumping duties. So and the other policies are, the demand should be less elastic in the domestic market. Obviously, if it is elastic, then it will be the great danger for the local people. And as a result, the monopolist sells its commodity at a low price in the foreign market and at a higher price in the domestic market. The foreign market should be perfectly competitive, and the domestic market is monopolistic. And the last one is, the buyers in the domestic market cannot buy the cheap commodity from the foreign market and bring it in the domestic market. So look at the last point. So if I'm able to buy some cheaper product from the international market, some other countries' market, and I can put that in my market, in domestic market, in a higher price, so that's a dumping. So government has to stop that. So that is why they did those anti-dumping rules and embargoes in the countries, and not only in India, but also on the total international trade, means all over the countries. So hope you have understood something on the dumping duty. So in the next class, we will try on some other economic factors, like transfer pricing and other things. So till then, bye bye.